This is Python's Paradise. This is straight out of Fredericton, New Brunswick, with your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena. And folks, this is episode 405. Yes, my 405th interview since 2015. And thanks to Zoom, 2021 has allowed me to do something a little different, like counter COVID. And here we are, February the 7th, 2021, and I got a wonderful guest on the phone on the phone. I'm so used to saying on the phone from the station, but I got on Zoom today. Wonderful actor out of Canada, and I love our Canadian talent. Folks, we are celebrating the anniversary of Crash, the David Cronenberg film, 25 years. And we have one of the stars of the film on the show today. We have Peter McNeal. How do you do, Peter?
I'm terrific. I'm fine. It's great to be here with you.
I love your background, the mirror and whatnot, you know.
Oh,
you're,
yeah.
you're,
I'm sitting at the dining room table, and I didn't know where to stick my computer, so here we are.
yeah, I
Well,
don't know. I got to do something with my lighting, but oh well. I always said, I'm just the host who wants to see me. But but still, it's great to have you here. I know you've been busy during COVID. I'm an essential worker, and I know that you've been busy as well. Talk about dealing with the COVID situation.
yeah. I've been very fortunate to have been able to work right through.
Hmm.
I was in Nova Scotia all last summer, shooting a new series for E1 and CBC called
Hmm.
Feudal, with uh, written and created by Sherry Elwood, who also I worked with a few years ago doing a series called Call Me Fitz that we also shot down in Nova Scotia. So we were, Nova Scotia and all of the Maritimes, actually, provinces, handled COVID really well.
Yeah.
They, as you know, they created a bubble, and there were very few cases compared to the rest of Canada and compared to America. So we were able to work quite safely, but still being tested every week, a couple of times every week. And I was working on another film at the same time up here with Guillermo del Toro,
Ah.
um, and his new film that's going to be coming out sometime in the fall, I think. Got the Oscar last year for um, the water film. Anyway, Kate Blanchett and Bradley Cooper were starring it, and so I was busy with that, and then back and forth to Nova Scotia, and I didn't want to fly on a on a regular jet because of COVID.
Hmm.
Apparently, the planes were just full of COVID carriers, and so I asked if they could get me up there a different way, and sure enough, somebody up at Disney sent a private jet for me. So
Oh, nice.
I was able to go up to Toronto and film a shooting. Thank God, they're very generous people. And then also flew back to Nova Scotia and finished that, and then flew back up here. Did a little bit more work on Guillermo's film, and then moved right into a series I do every year for a Hallmark Channel called The Good Witch. So it's been I'm at present unemployed. Thank God,
Well,
because it was a long haul.
I don't know how much you can give, but talk about working with Del Toro and Cooper and Blanchette.
Oh, it's every actor's dream,
Hmm.
every actor's biggest thrill, I think. Uh, Guillermo paints a picture when he's working, and
Yeah.
you realize you're part of that picture, and he's inventive, and he's imaginative, and he's wonderful to work with.
Hmm.
He's precise, and he creates incredible images, and it's just you feel it's a real thrill, a pleasure, what a gift to be working with him in a film. So it was, yeah, terrific. I can't wait to see what comes of it. I'm sure it's going to be really terrific.
Absolutely. Of course, I think it's every actor's dream to work with David Cronenberg, and you've had the pleasure of working with him more than once.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Talk about working with David.
Well, David's so smart,
Mm-hmm.
and David loves his his work, his his calling. It's a calling. And when you're shooting with David, we shot film, when we were working with David. And I was in a small film, not a small film, a small part with David years and years and years ago in a film called Rabid.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I first met him. It's just a small walk-on part. And then he very graciously hired me to do Crash, which
Yeah.
was a real eye opener for me. And I got to work with some terrific people.
Mm-hmm.
Holly Hunter, James Spader. Who else? Who else was in that film?
Elias Koteas, Roseanne
Elias
Arquette,
Koteas, Roseanne Arquette. Yeah, that's right.
Deborah Kara Unger. Yep.
I found myself in good company, and
Yeah.
really a lot of fun company.
Oh yeah.
Strange film, bizarre film.
Mm-hmm.
As we went through all the process, I remember being surprised at every turn. The first time I got to dress up in a shirt, a skirt and a suit and nylon stockings and high heels. So, because I was playing a stunt man who was going to play the part of Jane Mansfield,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
decapitated in a car crash. So
Yeah.
I tried the costume on, and I immediately had the skirt shortened. Got great legs.
You don't think Playgirl was going to be looking for you for that shoot?
I don't think so. But
Well,
David's the kind of guy who we worked long hours. You
mhm.
worked 16, 18, sometimes more hours a day, because David seemed to be able to find undeveloped film somewhere. When he ran out of film that he had on hand on the set, he would find some somewhere and continue to shoot. I mean, it was that inventive. And David's a wonderful guy who, as you're working, he listens to ideas, and he's not afraid to listen to someone who's standing beside him and saying, "Wouldn't it be great if we could do this or do that?" And David said, "Oh,
Mhm.
that's a good idea. Let's try that." And he'll direct people to he's wonderful. He's inventive as well. Just quite incredible.
Yeah, his son had a movie out last year, which was pretty cool, and I went and saw it, and it was a great movie.
Good.
Yep. And right off the top of my head, I can't remember what it was, but I know that Jennifer Jason Leigh was in it, who is of course an existence. So, and I like Jennifer, but it was a great movie, and you could tell the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Deals with the body horror stuff, and yeah, I wish him the best. And yeah, Cronenberg's one of the fantastic directors. I'm very pleased that he's Canadian, gives us all something to be proud of. But before we get into Crash and history of violence and whatnot, I would like a little bit of your background and how you come to uh, be an actor, and what you got you into it.
Well, that's a long story, because as you know, I'm as old as dirt. So I was
You're
in,
you're 39.
oh yeah, I was in university in Montreal, and I was having trouble writing papers because I'd been out of school for a while. I was a hippy dippy kid, and I traveled around by freight train and the power of your thumb, and was hanging out in San Francisco in the mid 60s, and I got all that out of my blood. And I went back to school. I was having trouble writing papers, and we were doing a play. I was doing English lit and philosophy, and a philosophy class I was having some trouble with. We were reading a play by Archibald MacLeish called um, um, what was it called? My God, it's been so long ago. I was having trouble writing a paper, so the prof said, "Why don't you go down to the basement? There's a brand new glamour course down there on making television, and they don't know what to point their cameras at. So why don't you take the philosophical grain from the story and go down and put something on tape and see if you like that better than writing." And I did that. And I directed it, and I've got some other students to act in it, and I did the voiceover for it, and we did a little 20-minute film, and I got an A, and I promptly left university and joined a small theater company.
There you go.
You just somehow fall into things, follow your heart, and what you love to do. And if you really love it and do it long enough, people will pay you for it.
There you go.
So yeah, it was like that. And I worked in theater for years and years and years. Some of the best years of my life in
Absolutely.
Montreal and across Canada. And I've worked in England and in Ireland. And yeah, the best years of my life. I don't work theater very much anymore. It's pretty difficult. I don't know that I can keep an hour and a half script in my head any longer.
No. Well, I'm going on IMDb here because it's according to that your first film was in 1974, the year I turned 2. It's Why Rock the Boat. Now, I don't know this film, but I would like you to walk me through the process of doing your first film and what that experience was like and casting you.
Well, as you can imagine, when I was that young and that new in the
Mhm.
industry and had only worked really on stage, had no idea what film was about. And it was a small part because I was an unknown. There was no reason to hire me that I could think of. So, but someone thought, well, okay, let's give this kid a shot. And it was a small part.
Mhm.
But I was frightened to death, all there were so many crew around, all doing their jobs, and lights, and everyone shouting, different things, and so, the old lesson about just say your lines and don't bump into the furniture you manage to get through.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I can hardly remember what the film was about myself. It was so long ago. It was a filmmaker from the National Film Board, I believe, in Montreal, who
Mhm.
was responsible for that. Um, it wasn't, I was a young man. I was frightened. It wasn't a very memorable something you hold on to for very long. You, you
Yeah.
try and forget it and move on.
Well, we do. I am going to jump into Crash here. There's a bunch of your films I do want to talk about, but Crash, I think, is going to be the highlight because I can't believe that film turns 25 this year. Now, it didn't come to our theater here, but it did go to the Film Society down at UMB, and I had to go see it. I heard about all the controversy and all the issues Cronenberg had with people protesting and this and that, and so I had to go see it. And I remember sitting in the auditorium for that film, and there was at least 2 people I noticed get up and walk out, and I was like, I was quite invested. I was shocked. I mean, I've heard about people's sexual preferences and this and that. I'd never heard of this.
Nor had I.
but but I mean, if you know Cronenberg at all, you know what you're in for. Well, for the most part, anyway. But I love his catalog of films. Like Scanners, The Brood, and and Videodrome, and you know, the list goes on. Cronenberg's got an imagination, which I find lacking in a lot of the, you know, reboots and stuff like that that's being done today. So Crash was something different. Do you remember much about the controversy at that time over this film?
Well, the idea that people, you know, were using car crashes to excite their libido and get wound up, and the idea of that was so bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think, you know, a lot of people said, you know, what the hell is going on here? What's this all about? They hadn't read J.G. Ballard's book, and you know, it didn't affect you. It didn't affect us in the business. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we were there to tell a story, and get on with it. And you know, we expected a lot of, or at least I did as an actor, expected or wondered how people were going to take it, how people were going to, whether they'd enjoy it or not, or whether they'd dismiss it out of hand, or whether they'd walk out in outrage. You know, we had no idea, or I had no idea. I can only speak for myself. I don't know how David felt, but I was really quite happy with the film when I saw
Mm-hmm.
it. I thought, okay, this is a little strange, a little kinky, a little weird, but it held together, and I had a great time working on
Yeah, it looked like a
it.
fun set.
It was a hell of a set, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was a great movie. I enjoyed seeing it, and of course the Howard Shore score that accompanies it. You know it, and I love those opening credits where it shows like the headlights going back and forth. You know, and so creative. You know, I enjoyed the decisions like that on creativity. But yeah, you play Colin Seagrave, a stunt person, you know, and I gotta say, I love the fact you're introduced by Elias Coute's character, Dr. Robert Vaughn, and he introduces you as a stunt person, and you guys are going to reenact the James Dean crash. You know, it's strange. You know, James Dean is one of these characters that's just he's like Elvis. He's lived far beyond the grave. You know, um, I I've saw Rebel Without a Cause in the theater. You know, on a re-release, and he's quite the icon, and of course you guys are duplicating that crash. First off, for me, stunt person or not, I don't think you could talk me into that. But nonetheless, you guys reenact the crash, and I love that moment in the film where James Spader says, "Are they hurt?" or something that measure, and Holly Hunter says, "You never know with Dr. Vaughn." And of course, slowly, you know, he brings the microphone to his mouth,
My
and
God, you've got a good memory. That's
oh yeah, well,
1996.
yeah, well, I loved it there where you're slouched in the passenger side, and the moment he says James Dean uh, crashed or whatever, I'm gonna get the dialogue butchered here, and became immortal. And you raise your hand like this, like, well, you're still slumped over. I got to admit, I like that, you know, like you survived the crash, but what a scene, you know? And of course, your character, being a stuntman or not, had to be helped out of that wreckage because
Uh,
you did. Yeah, he said,
it was freezing cold that night. You know, it was absolutely freezing cold, and it's a tight little fit for that, you know, Porsche. And we were wearing extra clothes, and I put all kinds of things on underneath the coveralls that I was wearing, and and I could hardly move anyway, so I needed help out. Yeah.
Yeah. Were you there when they did the actual crash?
No, I wasn't there,
No.
but I saw the car, and it was it could be controlled, radio controlled, that car,
Ah,
so it could be controlled from outside the car. So
yeah.
that helped.
Yeah. No, nobody putting their butts on the line for that.
That's right.
Um,
People are very safe in the film industry usually. Every once in a while you hear a horror story, but not very often. People are quite safe.
yeah. Oh, that was a great scene. And of course, the police show up and everybody's scattering, and
Running through the woods.
running through the woods, and they go back to Dr. Vaughn's flat there, and everybody's there. And I'm not sure what the mental state of Colin Seagrave was, because I know he talks about Jane Mansfield, and it's suggested to do the Mansfield crash. You're going like, give me big tits, you're like,
You want to see them squashed on the dashboard. And he was smoking a big doob and watching a pike in an aquarium.
yeah,
So fascinated with this fish, and having his bustier tried on, and he asks for. He wanted a hefty pair of knockers.
yeah. And of course, we all, and of course, the movie's 25 years old. Those who haven't seen it by now, a little spoiler alert to your character, but you do the James Mansfield crash without telling Dr. Vaughn. I gotta say, Elias Katiz, I first come to know who he was when he was in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, with the hockey mask and the hockey stick fighting the crime with the turtles. And then I see him in this, and he's so good in this movie. And I love it when he jumps out of the car during the crash. And I love that Cronenberg shoots it in slow motion. There's so much style in this film, he shoots it in slow motion, and he gets out and he sees you on the ground. You're dressed Mansfield drag there. And I love it. He says, "Oh, the dog is brilliant." I love that. Especially coming out of him. Yeah. Was that in the script, or was that something he just came up with?
I'm sorry, I can't remember. 96, I'm afraid.
96. Yeah, 96, I would have been 24. But yeah, I remember the film well. We didn't get it at our theater. We saw it at the university where the campus station is. I'm affiliated with, and I had to go see this, and but but nonetheless, I remember that, and I love it though. The dog is brilliant, and of course you had the dog there, and or the Jane Mansfield crash, and you,
Elias's comment on my acting. He said the dog was brilliant.
the dog was brilliant. Well, there you were. Did you have a hard time keeping it together, being dressed like that?
Uh, well, yeah, of course. It's hard to get around. You're not used to getting around in that kind of clothing. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it was good. I mean, we did that crash on the Don Valley Expressway and closed it overnight, and which is unheard of. It's a major highway, so and we closed it. We were all quite stunned that David was able to influential enough to have that happen.
Yeah. Nope, but that was a great moment in the film, and I got to ask though, do you have a favorite Cronenberg film? Even ones you haven't weren't in?
I really loved History of Violence. I've got to
History
say,
of Violence. Yeah, that
I,
I
I,
saw.
I really loved. I loved The Fly too, and I loved, um, those two. I remember Rabid,
Mm-hmm.
working on Rabid and thinking, oh my God, this is incredible. People with green foam coming out of their mouth. Got to do more of that.
Oh, he's a brilliant director.
Yeah.
Um, Talk about working with Elias on Crash, because obviously, his character is affiliated with your character. You're the stunt person, he's the presenter, and he gets in the car with you. He's the MC of this whole thing.
Elias is one of those actors who can spin on a dime and change attitude and ad lib, and he's totally free and totally easy. So he's really fun to be with.
Mm-hmm.
He enjoys his work. You can see a glint in his eye.
Oh yeah.
And he's so it's great fun to work with him. A lot of energy.
Yeah.
A great voice. So, yeah. It's it's odd, you work with someone like that and you put a piece of celluloid out that's going to last forever, and you're in it together and it lasts for a long time. But when you're working on it, say you're working for 10 days on your part, about 10 days together in 96, you don't really get to know each other, except
Mm-hmm.
you fall in love with some actors because you enjoy their work.
Mm-hmm.
You believe them completely when they're working, and it's really nice to see that, and it gives you a lot. When Elias is saying something to you, you can see he means it, so you respond in kind. It helps your work, and I
Mm-hmm.
hope I'm that kind of actor as well. So, but Brian Markinson is like that, and there's a bunch of people that you meet that you click with. And Ed Harris
Yeah.
in the History of Violence. At one point we started to ad lib because David lets the camera roll,
Mm-hmm.
and Ed and I back and forth were ad libbing, talking to each other, and just staying in the scene but talking to each other, and finally David yelled cut. He said, guys, that was great. It was really terrific. But we can't use any of it because you've just given away the whole damn plot. So I don't know how good we were at it, but it was a lot of fun.
Well, I'll tell you, Crash had a great cast. Besides Elias, we have James Spader playing James Ballard, and of course a filmmaker, and of course he's not the safest driver in the world, as we come to find out, with his coffee and his scripts and driving at the same time. People talk about drinking and driving and texting and driving. Reading scripts and driving definitely is up there, and he winds up in a crash, and of course wakes up in the hospital, and his world spirals into this whole new direction from there. And James Spader's a terrific actor. He was in of course the involved in the Avengers film as well, and he always seems to have something very different in store. I really liked him in this film. Any stories about working with him?
What impressed me was because 96 I was still hadn't had a lot of film under my belt, and I think James was the first and only actor on Crash who had an assistant with him. And he had an assistant, and that impressed the hell out of me. I thought, what does this assistant do exactly? So I'd look at him. He was quite quiet, he's very cerebral, and he was quite quiet. Holly Hunter is just great fun. She's a real smart gal, but she's wide open, and you'd sit and eat lunch, and we'd gab and gab, and it was great fun. James was always quiet, went off with his assistant to a table just a little distant away from where we were all sitting all the time. So I thought,
It's funny you
who
say
is
that.
this guy? Yeah,
It's funny you say that because I've interviewed people that's worked with Holly Hunter, and they've all said the same thing. She's very, very open. She's very engaging. Um,
she's kind.
yeah.
She's generous.
Mm-hmm.
She gives of herself as an actress, and yeah, she's great. She's terrific. I'd love to work with her again sometime. I
Well,
had someone mentioned to me the other day they had
yeah,
done something with Holly Hunter, and I was a little bit jealous. I thought, oh my God, that's so lucky.
yeah, Holly Hunter, and of course she is in that car that James crashes into, and I love that moment. And you talk about me remembering stuff in this film. Of course, James is at fault on this crash, and he encounters, and of course, Elias Cotes as Dr. Vaughn is in the hospital. Of course, he's scouting for other reasons, though. But I love it when James Spader and Holly Hunter encounter each other in the corridor at the hospital, and she's got the cane and they look at each other. And I love that close up of the cane as she clutches it and continues walking on and kind of contempt there. I love the Cronenberg's choice of showing the close up of her grasping the cane and keep going there. And of course, she's also involved in all this. There's a little twisted little underbelly to her character that brings James into this world. I find it interesting because Holly Hunter's character just kind of almost disappears halfway through the movie, and it kind of goes into other characters, but she's a major factor in that first half.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. Eh,
You remember more about the film than I do for sure. I mean, it's quite incredible. If I'd known you wanted to talk this deeply about it, I would have gone and rewatched the film, and been
you
able
want
to.
me to tell you something funny? I don't even have it here. I don't even know if it's on Blu-ray right now. If it is, I got to order it. I don't even have it here. So that's how well I remember Crash,
Oh
you
my
know.
God, it made an
Yeah.
impression on you. Well,
Yeah.
that's good. David would
It
love to hear that.
Yep, yep. But yeah, well, David's an incredible director, but he knows how to choose his actors. Deborah Kara Unger, of course, went on to make one of the great David Fincher movies the year after, The Game. Um, and this was my introduction to Deborah Kara Unger. I didn't know who she was prior. And
That makes two of us.
yeah, oh, she's wonderful in this. She's great in The Game,
Mhm.
and with Michael Douglas. And here, she, of course, is the girlfriend of the James Spader character. And she gets kind of brought into this little world too. There's a couple of key moments with her that I definitely wanted to bring up. One is pretty symbolically, explicitly dirty when they're in the car wash. And of course, James Spader's slowly going through the car wash. And I love again the slow motion. And you got, of course, Dr. Vaughn and Kara uh, Unger character, Catherine Ballard, in the back seat. And they're having sex. And the images of the soap and the scrubbing on the car and whatnot, I'm like, okay, this is getting a very visual of what it's suggesting. But I gotta say, I like what the choices that Cronenberg made here. And another moment in the film is involving a crash situation where you got James Spader crawls over to where Deborah Kara Unger is laying. And I'll paraphrase this a bit. He goes, "Are you all right?" or something like that. But he doesn't say it in a concerning manner. It's a game. She says, "All right, yeah, she's fine. Well, as fine as you can be." And she goes, "Maybe the next time. Maybe the next time." And that great panning back shot. You know, I know the audience at the time didn't know what to make of that. I didn't at the time either, but I kept going back to the film.
Coming closer and closer to the edge.
Yeah. And there was moments in this film that were really strange, like the sexual undertones to the car wash scene, and even the crash scene where they come across where the Mansfield scene, and where he finds your body, and Elias jumps out of the car, and you see the close-ups of people like breaking, using these big scissor-like things to break into the car, and it's almost like a reference to dangerous sex, you know. It's very strange, and I liked it.
Well, when that scene where I was trying the bustier on, or having my wife sew this bustier for me, and I was watching the Pike, and on the couch over beside me is James Spader and Holly Hunter, engaged in watching films of car crashes.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, there's a mutual masturbation scene going on.
Oh,
You know,
there's something now. There was something I actually forgot about.
I was there, and I was going, oh my God, oh yeah, this is interesting.
Oh, I know they did the James Spader crash, James Mansfield, and I know the Grace Kelly one was mentioned. I always loved Grace Kelly, but all these celebrity car crashes, and certainly gave an interesting little backstory. But I didn't ask what. I don't even know if you even get to work with Deborah Kara Unger in that film. Did you encounter her in that?
No, we were not in the same scenes together.
No.
So, no.
Oh, she was wonderful in it. I'll tell you one person I do get to bring up, and I've always been a fan of hers, is Rosanna Arquette. She of course was in After Hours, which is an extremely underrated Scorsese's movie. I love that film, and that was the first time I recall seeing Rosanna Arquette. And of course, Desperately Seeking Susan, and all kinds of stuff she's done. And of course, in this film, again going back to the dangerous sex thing, you know, she's got these leg braces on.
It's incredibly uncomfortable, very awkward leg braces, this things she had to wear, and it was quite amazing to watch her deal with the whole thing. It was fantastic.
Yeah. There was a scene in the movie that I remember being very funny, where she and James Spader are going to the car dealership. And of course, she needs assistance from the guy to get in the car, and her braces rip the seat. James Spader got lucky in this film. I mean, Deborah Kara Unger, Holly Hunter, Rosanna Arquette. I'd probably sign on to that movie too if I knew I was going to have romance with those three gorgeous women.
Not really romance, is it?
Yeah, twisted sort. Yeah. Do you have memories of Rosanna Arquette?
Oh yeah, she's an incredible looking person. She's, I mean, she just takes your breath away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
and then with all the, you know, the costume and all, yeah, it's fantastic. I was, wow. And she and I didn't really have any scenes together either.
Well, I know there was a moment in the film where she and Holly Hunter return to a wrecked car that had personal connections with them, and they have sex in it. There was a lot of this was so twisted, so dark, and yet so curious. I can understand why the film was controversial. I
Mhm.
get it. I'm not for censorship. I find that if a person doesn't want to watch something, don't watch it. Um, I stuck through the whole film when I saw it down at the university, and I've seen it since, and love the film. It I know it was. I don't know whether it was released with an NC-17 X rating or whether it was managed to counter. I know there's two versions of the film where there is an X rating.
Oh, I can't remember how it.
Yeah.
I think, I first saw it at the festival, I guess. So no, I can't remember.
Do you remember the reaction of people?
I think there were a few people who walked out, but it was to be, everyone shrugged it off. It didn't mean, like you said, if you don't want to watch it, don't watch it.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it really meant. I don't think David was insulted or anything. I wasn't.
No. Oh, gee. No, it was a great movie. And like I said, the look of the film, I don't think it was a terribly big budgeted film, but and it was certainly a different take on his body horror genre that of course Cronenberg was famous for at that time, with Scanners and Videodrome and The Brood and etc. Very, very different. And of course, you've worked with Cronenberg. Let's go back to Rabid. I know you had
Oh,
a smaller part in
yeah.
Rabid, but
I think I felt very lucky to be included. I was a young beginning actor. Just, I got a part in a David Cronenberg film. I really had very little to do. I had to have a fight with someone and break a 2x4 over their backs and, you know, um, just go a bit crazy. But, you know, not a memorable part for an audience.
do you remember Marilyn Chambers?
I remember Marilyn Chambers, and I remember sort of all kinds of sort of people talking about scandals around Marilyn Chambers, but that's all I vaguely remember. Now, when was that film made?
That came out in, says here, April 8th, 1977 on Wikipedia.
77. I was just, yeah.
I
I,
would have been five, well, approaching my fifth birthday.
and I had just really started working. It was it was in Montreal. We shot in Montreal. And I think it was probably very close to one of my first jobs ever, you know.
Well, he did this right after he did Shivers, so I mean,
Yeah.
in both films have some similarities. So yeah. And then of course we got to talk about History of Violence. Now that one I saw in the theater when that came out, and that was a great film and definitely a different path for Cronenberg because these were not quite the same as what you're used to seeing out of him. But you know what? I think he got some great work out of Viggo Mortensen, of course, who did the Green Book.
Amazing actor.
Yep, yep, and Maria Bello and Ed Harris, of course, William Hurt. You got some great casting in this, and of course, you're involved in this as well. I know you've talked a little bit about this, but do you have anything more to share about History of Violence?
And just working with David as an actor and keeping your eyes and ears open is an education. He's very smart,
Mm-hmm.
and he's welcomes suggestions and change. He's easy. He's open. And then you're standing next to Vigo, and Vigo's a mountain of a human being. I mean, he's a wonderful poet, writer. He's a kind and open. You really appreciate it when you're in the stressful times of working on a film and trying to get everything right and figure out who you are in the film and how you relate to the other people. And so you need support from your fellow actors and support from the director. And when you're working with Cronenberg, that seems to be, you get that in spades. You know, it's absolutely wonderful. And Vigo and Maria Bello had the hottest sex scene, I think, in the film on the staircase I've ever seen in my life.
Hotter than anything in Crash.
Well, different.
You know, I think Cronenberg, I don't think gets near the respect in the business that he should. I can't believe this guy has never been up for the Academy Award. Here's what I find funny. Robert Pattinson was in the Twilight movies. I was never a big fan of those movies, but Pattinson, of course, just did the Lighthouse there with Willem Dafoe, and he was great in it. And Cronenberg has had Robert Pattinson in a couple of his films, and those films didn't even come to our theater. And I'm like, man, it's like with a director like Cronenberg, why are his films now suddenly just going to limited release, or festival releases? Because especially he's got a fan base, and he does a great product.
That's a good question, and it's also above my pay grade. But I mean, that's a producer's question, I guess, and a publicist's question. Those are the people who are concerned with that kind of thing, because I think everyone who works with David comes away with nothing but glowing things to say about him and his work. So,
well, Pattinson has been trying. I know Kristen Stewart has struggled and still struggles to leave the Twilight situation, but and she's done some good stuff, but she's having troubles breaking away from that. Pattinson's doing a little better at it, but I know he still struggles to get away from the sparkly vampire. And it's like, I think it's great when somebody like Cronenberg looks at this guy and says, I see something more in this guy, and cast him in 2 or 3 of his movies. And it's sad that we as an audience, especially in a small town like Fredericton here, don't get to see that unless it's streaming or whatnot. I actually find it a little disrespectful to the director, because there's a lot of films come out there that they advertise in all the fast food restaurants, and then you see them and you forget them.
Yeah, it's a question of who owns the movie theaters as well, right? And gaining access, and Canadian films having a tougher time and usually getting a couple weeks run, and then they're pushed out of the way for larger budget American films, and all kinds of things like that. I don't pretend to know a whole hell of a lot about it, but that seems to be one of the big battles for Canadian filmmakers, is to play major theaters, not just art houses, and and get seen instead of just the 4 main centers or something, but also play around the provinces, and play in smaller towns. But it's I don't know who makes those decisions, pal.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, I miss those tax shelter days when the Canadian films that came out there in the 70s and the early 80s and whatnot that come out of Canada. Now you get movies that are shot in Canada and they're American films. I loved it when we owned these movies, like your Meatballs or your Porky's or your Cronenberg movies or your Class of 1984 or stuff like that. It was nice when we had those. Now it's you get something like Bon Cop Bad Cop, which did well,
Quebec has always done well for itself. It has its own industry.
Mm-hmm.
It looks after its directors and its actors. The industry works as a unit, a whole, to produce and to push forward the whole industry. I think there are 4 or 5 different fan magazines about in Quebec, published in Quebec, about Quebec actors, and you know, Echo Vedette and different things like that that promote the industry to the public. You know, so the public gets to know the Quebecois actors, and it's something we don't do in the rest of Canada.
Well, there's a couple Canadian films I got to bring up, though. One, I again didn't come to our theaters, but I saw down the university, The Hanging Garden, which I came to appreciate more later. At the time I wasn't thrilled with it, but then again, I don't think I got it at that time.
It was a tough film for a lot of people to get, but you know, because it required you to work and to put your own experience into the film, and
Yeah.
if that was what could it be about? And I would say to people, they say, what was it about? And I say, what do you think it was about? And they would answer, you know, it's about this, it's about that. I say, exactly right. That's, you know,
Yeah.
you've got it. You trust yourself that you know it, because it's a film about feelings, right? It's really, a lot of it is about feeling. I love the film.
Oh, I've come to appreciate it more. Like, I remember the first time seeing it, I didn't get it. And it's like, maybe that was my viewing inexperience. You know, I review movies, and 1996 was the year I started doing it. And so I've come a long way. And with The Hanging Garden, I've got a lot more appreciation for it now. Whereas back then, I'm like, okay, I see where my thinking was wrong there. You know?
Yeah. You know, having been inside it, you know, I was privy to all the give and take and the discussion around it. So I had no trouble. But I know a lot of people said to me, I love the work in it. I love the, you know, the camera, and I love the light. I loved everything. But what was it really about? And I would have to say, you know what it's about. You just have to let yourself, your own brain, absorb it and say what you think it's about, and you'll be very close. Yeah.
And of
It's
course,
yeah.
yeah.
I know it. I love the film. I had a great time filming it.
Yeah.
Tom
And
Fitzgerald.
of course, at the Silverwave Film Festival in 2004, I attended a screening of Geraldine's Fortune with Jane Curtin and Mary Walsh. I thought were wonderful in it. Matt Frewer, I like him. I think he's a fine actor, but kind of playing Jim Carrey in this movie a little bit. What?
That was a hell of a film. The day we started to make the film, the very first day, the director, John Smith, who's I love John. He's really great, and he's very brave.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Okay, we've got some issues here. First of all, we don't have a script."
Okay.
On day one. So, but we have a very talented cast, and we know what the story is.
Mm-hmm.
So we're all going to just ad lib, and we're going to rehearse and shoot the rehearsal, and we're going to put it all together, and we're going to have a film. And you know, it was partially successful, and there was some problems, some issues with it, and I think everyone learned a lesson. I love Mary Walsh, you know.
Mary Walsh is funny in it. Yeah.
Yeah, and Jane, and there was a number of comedians in that film.
Mm-hmm.
And it was great to shoot for me, because I'm from New Brunswick. I'm from Campbellton, Dalhousie, Point Lenim area.
Campbellton struggled with the pandemic. I do know that.
I remember driving through New Brunswick on my way to Nova Scotia last year, and wanting to go bring my wife and go by where I was born and where I went to elementary school, a one-room schoolhouse
Mm-hmm.
in Point Lenaim, and I wanted to show her all that area, but Campbellton was having that trouble with a breakout of COVID, so
Mm-hmm.
we had to avoid it. We're going back this summer because the series has been picked up, a series of I'm doing called Feudal. And so we're going to go back and we're going to do just that, though. Go through Campbellton if everything is cleaned up.
I
And
find
have
it funny how few people even know what New Brunswick, Canada is. Like, I know Canadian actors do. I met very, very few uh, interviewed very few people overseas that even know. A lot of people are surprised, especially from LA, that I'm 4 hours ahead of them.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, New Brunswick is not very often in the news unless it's spruce budworm or COVID.
I heard New Brunswick, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't they say that New Brunswick handled the pandemic better than any other place?
Well, they handled it really well. I think all of the maritime PEI
Mm-hmm.
and Nova Scotia and Newfoundland for a while was in the bubble, and it moved around. All of those provinces handled it really, really well. And when they had that trouble up in Campbellton, I think they were doing tracing very well, so they could, keep a good hold of it. And that was the only real bad spot, right? And it wasn't anything like Ontario or Quebec or British Columbia or Alberta. It was, I know you guys, it was fantastic. I
Yeah.
was able to work in Nova Scotia the whole summer, and it felt like it was normal. We wore masks.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone was doing all the protocols. We wore masks the whole time, but except when we were on camera. But it was, it was wonderful. I had to quarantine twice.
Mm-hmm.
Once when I arrived, and then I left to go and do some work on Guillermo's film. When I came back, I had to quarantine again. And they called the house every day, someone from the health department, to make sure you were there and you were quarantining. They were really, really very strict about it. And it was the best thing that anyone could ever do because, it saved the economy of the province. It was great.
Well, I got a few other your films I want to ask you about. Of course, Stella with Bette Midler.
Again, another small part, long, long time ago, and mostly what our job was, I think it was Michael Hogan and I,
Mm-hmm.
a Canadian actor who I enjoy, mostly telling jokes to Bette so she could laugh freely on camera. So she would get ready and tell me another joke just before the take, and and we would, prime her pump, so to speak. With laughter. That was, I'd forgotten all about Stella.
Body Parts. So you're credited as playing a drunk man. I haven't seen this, but I've certainly
My
recognized
goodness.
it.
These are very early things. I don't think I can't even remember what it's about. It was so long ago. Come on.
That was 1991. That's celebrating anniversary as well.
Oh God. Oh, what see, I'm trying to think of things
Well, here's some that I saw in the
open
theater.
range or something.
I saw Frequency in theater with Dennis Quaid and Jim
Yeah.
Caviezel.
Yeah, that was an interesting film.
Yep.
Yeah. I was actually just looking at a poster of Frequency the other day.
Mm-hmm.
I'd forgotten about it. I had fun with Dennis Quaid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we shot in New York. We went down and we shot it in New York City, and it's rare for a Canadian actor to get in. New York City is very expensive to shoot in. When we blew up right under the George Washington Bridge, and
Mm-hmm.
the explosion wrapped right around the bridge, it was quite incredible. And Dennis and I were running around like with the fire, everything about to explode, and the sewer filled with gases, and the big tanker truck had crashed and was pouring gasoline into into the sewers, and it was sparking like crazy, and we didn't know what to do, and it was all action. We had no sort of thoughtful dialogue. It was all action. And I remember like sliding in beside him and hiding behind a big truck wheel, and I was mumbling to myself, and he said, what's wrong? What's wrong? And I said, I've got no idea what I'm doing here. No idea. What am I doing? He said, neither do I. Don't worry about it. just run when you're told to run. Yeah, it was very exciting to shoot down there, and it was fun to do up here. And the director took us out to a great meal in Harlem, at a famous Harlem restaurant. We had, fried chicken. We just had a good time.
There you go.
Working in New York is a wonderful thing.
Well, Jim Caviezel was in that, and he was also in Angel Eyes, and Jennifer Lopez is in that, and I saw that in the theater. Any memories of that?
Yeah. I was in. The same producer was making another film at the time, called Cletus Tout. I think it came out under the title "Who in the World is Cletus Tout" or something like that. And it didn't get a big showing. There were 7 producers, and I think it ended up on the shelf. But it was a terrific film. It played at the film festival in Toronto, and to standing ovation. And it was a lot of fun. So I was working with Jennifer Lopez and doing this thing. A nice little part. I was quite happy with it. And the first day we worked together, I thought, oh my God, it's like being in heaven working with her. She's wonderful. She's really great. I'm going to have a great time. But then the producer of the film said, listen, we want you to be on the other film. And it's a bigger part, and we want you to do that on Cletus Tout, who's playing the detective who's chasing Cletus Tout all over the place. And so I was supposed to work with Jennifer in another 3 or 4 or 5 scenes in the film, but they found a way to write me out of that film and put me into Cletus Tout, which I was, really, really happy with. I had a really great time, a wonderful time doing that film. And I was so disappointed in the release. Apparently there was all kinds of disagreements about the title and how it should be shown and where it should be, how it should be. I don't pretend to understand exactly what went on behind the scenes, but I know it was a good film, because I'll never forget being played at the Toronto Festival, and the audience stood up and gave it, it was wonderful.
Yeah, I saw that in the theater. And then you get to work with Ron Howard on Cinderella Man.
Yeah, another small scene, but it's really great to work with people like that. Ron Howard is, someone who's got so much under his belt, so experienced.
Yep.
And here you are, taking direction from him, and he's smart, and he's gentle and thoughtful, and and he helps you along, and you do the job, and he says thank you very much. You say, I would have paid you to do this, because it was such a pleasure to work with him. Yeah.
Do you remember any? It's been so long since I've seen Cinderella Man, but of course Russell Crowe and Renee Zellweger. Any memories of them?
Yes, Renee and I had that little scene together, and we played this gas man who's going to shut off the gas to our house, right? And there was this, it's a mean bugger. I said, I'm sorry, it's my job. I have to do it. No, no matter how she complained about her kids and the heat, and they wouldn't be able to eat, and they wouldn't be able to cook, and I'm sorry, it's my job. I have to do it. And she was great. It's a short little scene, but intense, and it's just a sweet little moment and that's what a film is made of, is all these little moments that are important, that tie everything around the central character. Everything's tied together by all these little scenes. So again, it was a pleasure to do that for Mr. Howard.
And I saw this film in the theater too, and I hadn't seen it since, but Kit Kittredge, An American Girl. Abigail Breslin, I first come to know in Little Miss Sunshine. And I'm going to tell you, she became a very brilliant young actress.
She was very brilliant right from the beginning. When
Yep.
I met her, the curiosity and the intelligence and the just self-contained, self-assuredness that she had as such a young, wee girl. I went, my God, this is like one of the children of the damned or something. She's especially blessed with these incredible talents, and I wasn't sure she was aware of how wonderful she was. But out of this little wee girl came this completely rounded person, wonderful.
Yeah. And The Exorcism of Molly Hartley. Any memories of that?
Yeah. Yeah, I had a copper pipe shoved through my body, and my guts were coming out one end of it.
Talk about doing that and being set up for that.
and the girl who was holding me from behind, I was asking her to like hold me up because I was, my guts were pouring out of the thing. So I had no legs. I said, I need you to hold this. And she let go at one point and I fell, and there was a piece of pipe sticking out of the wall, and I whacked my head with it. It knocked me, like blacked out for a few seconds. They had to cart me off to the hospital. There's a film.
Yeah, I saw that in the theater. And I think the last one I want to ask you about is Regression, because I mean that had, of course, Emma Watson in it from the Harry Potter fame. Yeah.
Yeah. She, yeah. Again, well, we didn't have scenes together, Emma and I, but it was a Spanish director, and it was kind of fun to do, because he called me up from Spain and said, "I'd like you to do this part." And I said, who the hell is this guy? What's going on? And then, I found out about it. I found out who was in it, and I thought, oh my God, okay, wow, look at this. It was fun to do. I think personally, it was that situation had already happened in America, right, where there were a few years before. So the film was, I think, released after the fact, which was too bad.
Well, according to this, the last film that you had been released was The Kid Detective. And then it says here, completed, My Beautiful Bride. You got anything to say about those?
Well, My Beautiful Bride it was a small film made by a young American filmmaker who's very talented, very smart kid, and called me up out of the blue, and I flew down to New York State, and we shot for a few days. And it was, I think he's going to be a hell of a filmmaker once he gets his legs under him. But it's a first film, first feature. So and his friend wrote it, and his friends were acting in it, and they invited me to take part with it, which I was very happy to do. They were very sweet to me, and they were very kind. And I see I saw it on IMDb that it's just completed. We actually shot it about 4 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Or 5 years ago, yeah. So I think there was, again, young filmmakers trying to, which I appreciate that you're doing what you're doing, because it helps these young filmmakers get noticed. And you mention the titles, and you mention who they are, and he's going to be an up and comer, but it's a long struggle. It's like starting out in any industry. So, and Kid Detective is the same thing, another young filmmaker who had worked on this script for 5 years before we started filming. Last year or the year before, I guess. I still haven't seen it because I've been busy and all over the place. So, but I love working with young, enthusiastic people trying to break into the industry and trying to get their voices heard. And they've got lots of things to say, and they're so eager to say it. And everyone works really hard. Lots of people are working for very little money, helping everybody. Everyone's helping everybody, and the union has a level of film that where you can work at a discounted rate below what the union usually demands to allow this kind of work to happen. It's called TIF. So you work or tip. You work under your salary, and you try and help these people out who are making films for the first time. And I think it's a great program, and it gives a lot of people their start. A lot of people their some experience. So whenever I get a chance, I usually offer up my experience, years and years of it. So I'm certainly willing to do that. So, and I
was going to say, do you think they'll ever get you on the Trailer Park Boys?
I think they've got that group so solidly together. There's no room for another reprobate. I'm doing this new series now called Feudal,
Okay.
which is all about a family that runs a small beach resort that's 1 star on a good day. So it's not like Trailer Park Boys, but it's got some of the same sensibilities in it. Some of it. So I think wait, it'll be out sometime in the fall, I guess. We start shooting again in June, so we'll have 2 seasons behind us, and it'll be ready to come out. It'll be out on CBC, and I think you'll enjoy it.
Absolutely. Anything else you got coming up in the future that you want to plug on here?
No, I'm waiting for Guillermo's film to come out because I was so pleased to be given that chance, and I worked with Kate Blanchette on that film, and I just finished working with her on another television miniseries called what was it called? Mrs. America.
Okay.
So it's with Kate Blanchette, and who else was in that? Margot Martindale and Rose Byrne. But in Guillermo's film, who the hell? I was working with Kate again, and Bradley Cooper. Most of my scenes with Bradley Cooper and Kate Blanchette, and so that felt very special. And I'm waiting to see. I know it's going to be a wonderful film, and I'm going to be so happy with it. So we'll see what happens.
Oh, Mrs. America. Yeah, I think I seen a clip from that. So I like the old slapstick. I think that's the one where, she plays a conservative activist. I saw a scene in that where somebody comes in, throws a cake in her face.
She's a terrific actress. I mean, what a grand dame she is. Just fabulous. Yeah.
Oh, I enjoy that kind of humor. So I was like, I saw that footage where somebody from a restaurant comes in and he throws a cake in her face, and I'm like, okay.
Very angrily, though, right?
Yeah. Oh, I always love that kind of sight humor. Of course, in a movie, you don't have the anger behind it. It's all film, but nonetheless. Kate Blanchett, 2-time Oscar winner, so you're in good company there.
Oh, God, such good company.
Yeah.
It's just a real privilege to work with those people.
Okay. Do you have any charities that you want to plug on here that you're involved with?
No, not at the moment. If I do anything, I local PAL, which is the Performing Artists Lodge,
Mm-hmm.
and the Actors Fund of Canada, in which people who are out of work for a while and people having trouble, they can apply to the Actors Fund of Canada, and if they need help with their utilities or their rent or anything, So I want to do something for them if I ever do anything at all. I
Hmm.
do, regular stuff, but those are the two special ones.
Okay. And where can people get in touch with you? You got a web page or anything like that?
No, no, I try. I'm on Facebook, but I try to stay off lately. I've started painting in the last 4 or 5 years, so
Mm-hmm.
I use it to show people my paintings, and I think I may put up a web page of my artwork just for the heck of it and see what happens.
You know what? I've interviewed a lot of people from the industry that are into painting now, or either painting or sculpturing.
Well,
And
you find something artistic to do. I'm
mm-hmm.
thinking of, at some point in time, I'm going to have to hang it up. I don't know when. It seems as if they still want me to keep working. So,
Of course we do.
so
But nonetheless, yeah, it's also great to know you're from New Brunswick.
mhm.
That's rare for me to interview, like unless I'm interviewing somebody from right here, because I've lived here in Fredericton my whole life, and I got to tell you, going to St. John or Moncton, I would get homesick. And it wasn't until 2017, like I'm going to be 49 in July. So it wasn't until 2017 that I even got on a plane for the first time. And I got to say, I love Porter Airlines. I love it. But Lisa Langlois had invited me to Horrorama in Toronto. And I fell in love with Toronto. I got to tell you that.
Well, you should visit more often.
Well, you know what? The plan, I would have been there last year had COVID not screwed that up. But I'd like to make about a couple trips a year if I can. This year, if Horrorama still goes and it's scheduled for October 2nd and 3rd, if it still goes, I would like to spend a week there this fall and see Lisa and connect with anybody else down there. I had a lot of fun. It was my first convention, and Lisa opened up a lot of opportunities for me. I'll tell you, and she's always encouraged me to increase my brand, and I've enjoyed doing this. I've been enjoyed having you come on here. Um, this is the first time I've highlighted Crash in an interview, and I was happy to have you on here to talk about that. I certainly remember you in it, and as you've noticed, I've remembered that film quite well.
Yeah, certainly do. You remember it better than I do.
Yeah, and I
Knowing
even
the interview was going to happen, I should have had a look at it again, brought back some memories and what to talk about. But I'm
well,
building a fireplace in my house, so
yeah.
much more important.
Well, you know what? I gotta check and see if Crash is on Blu-ray because that's something I gotta pick up. I enjoyed the film. I like Cronenberg, and even last year I heard until the pandemic screwed it up. I heard they had Cronenberg actually booked for a convention, which was almost unheard of at that time. Getting Cronenberg to one of those because he'd be a huge draw at one of them. Have you ever done the conventions?
No, no, I haven't. No.
Well, this is something I ask all my guests. What's the strangest thing you've ever been asked to autograph?
You know, there wasn't anything really terribly strange, but it always surprises me. I did a series quite a few years ago called Captain Power and the Soldiers of the Future.
Okay.
and I played this guy, Matt Henderson, Fighter in the Sky.
Mm-hmm.
And they made a little doll of my character, and they had lunch boxes, and there was comic books, and there was actually a sort of a spaceship pistol that you pointed at the television and shot at the television. And if you hit the right target, you got points on your gun, and the television fired back. And if your gun got hit, think garage door opener as a, it's a light that hits, and it would take a point away from your gun. The gun would break apart. And then the kids would have to pick up the pieces and put it back together again to start it up again. And it was a great sort of science fiction-y, apocalyptic type of thing where machines ran the world, and Captain Power and the soldiers of the future were fighting against the machines. And I got so much fan mail from Japan and from people around here. And I'd go, we had you go see another film that you're in, a small film or whatever, someone having a local art house, and there inevitably be someone with, a Captain Power, a picture or something, or a postcard or a toy or something, wanting a signature, and you do the scribble on whatever they had, on the funny things. And I think, my God, people have these incredible hobbies that it becomes their whole life. It's so intense, and that they will stand outside the theater in the freezing cold and wait for someone who shot that in 1989. So, yeah, and there's still, if you look on Facebook, there's a Captain Power fan group.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. You know what? I'm not familiar with this, but I'm looking at it. Sven Ole Thorsen's in that. I've had him on the show.
Sven Thorsen?
Yeah. He was in Conan the Barbarian. He had that big hammer.
Yeah, he was a friend of Arnold Schwarzenegger's.
Yeah, I had him on here. I was so delighted to interview him too. I'll tell you, the pranks he played on Arnold Schwarzenegger over the years made the interview even worth more.
Yeah, no, he's a funny guy. He helped me shingle the front of my cottage up here in Ontario.
Oh, he is a great guy. I'm just looking this up here. I'm familiar with the name Captain Power, but I don't think I've ever seen it. But I see his name on here. I'm like, oh man, yeah, I like him. He is a great guy. Yeah, absolutely. You mind if I add you on Facebook?
Sure, I don't mind.
Okay, yeah. I'll do that. I got a lot of my guests on there. So anyway, when this comes out, I'll certainly keep you notified on it, or I'll send you an email, or I'll keep you in the loop on that.
Super.
Yeah, I appreciate having you come on here today and talk about Crash and talk about your career. And I love doing the deep cuts on some of these movies and whatnot, and hearing the stories. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm very honored to have you come on here today.
I think you're very generous.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Before I let you go, would you mind doing a plug for my show?
Sure, I don't mind at all.
Okay. You might want to write this down, but
oh my God, what do you want me to say?
Just state your name and say you're listening to Greg Gilbert. And the show is called Python's Paradise out of New Brunswick, Canada.
Pythons.
Yeah.
Out of Fredericton.
Yeah, Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. It's funny. I used to do plugs over the phone at the station. I just started doing them on Zoom here, because Zoom, you get video and you get audio, and I was like, I should get back at that. Are you set? Go for it. Go for it.
Hi, it's Peter Mcneal, and you're listening to Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise, right out of Fredericton. Let me do it again.
Go for it.
Okay. Hi, it's Peter McNeal. You're listening to Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise out of Fredericton, New Brunswick.
Absolutely.
You
And of
all
course,
right?
yeah, Crash turns 25. What do you think about that?
Just makes me feel older.
You know what? I don't know where the time goes. I don't know where the time goes. I can't believe that film's 25. I remember sitting in that auditorium down at UNB, University of New Brunswick, and Tilly Hall watching that film.
Yep. Seems like yesterday, huh? But it's 25 years ago.
25 years. Well, we hope you have another 25.
Thank you. Take care of yourself, Greg.
You take care of yourself too. Thank you so much for allowing me the honor today.
You're absolutely welcome, sir.
You take care and stay safe.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.